TheChairShot.com is back on the air.
Here we are.
After
That's such a great song.
After a 1 week
I am so glad you found that as our theme song
respite. Lord Dwyer Schlecke today.
today. Jackie's here,
Jackie's here.
as always. She is. Oh, I think she's missed once since we've been doing the show. We're on year 2, aren't we?
That's an amazing record.
You know, and we have a guest star,
Yeah.
Tom Hardwick of Thomas. Is there an initial in there? Thomas something?
No
just
initial.
Thomas Hardwick Appraisals. So we can talk about. I think last week Jackie and I were talking about how we've had a couple appraisals and we've had to fight them and send them back and complain. We'd never have to complain about Tom's, but if we did, he'd know it, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would.
Do you have any fights, Tom?
Occasionally, yeah,
Okay.
occasionally.
Small ones?
Yeah, I'm dealing with one right now where they didn't like the value and they sent me some additional information. So it happens.
Yeah.
So there you have it. So we thought we'd have Tom come on and maybe answer some of those questions. I mean, for example, when an appraisal, let's get right down to the nitty gritty of it. When an appraisal comes back, like we got these 2 appraisals, and they both had mistakes in them, blatant mistakes. The first one had mistakes about the house, the subject property. The second one, every single one of the comparables had mistakes. So what's the process? What should a realtor do in those situations?
Well, let's start out by talking about a couple different things. When people talk about appraisal issues, there's a couple different factors we need to deal with. One is just flat out bad appraising, and there's no defending that. If you have factual errors, there's no defending that type of stuff. The other type of appraisal issues that I hear about are appraisals that didn't arrive at a value conclusion that the lender wanted, the buyer wanted, the seller wanted,
Or the realtor wanted.
or the realtor wanted. Those are different issues. You have bad appraising, and then you have appraisal, quote unquote, issues that where it just didn't come in at the value that somebody's looking for. Again, there's no defending the bad appraising. You should fight it if you know the factual data is incorrect. Report it to the state, report it to the lender, report it to the appraiser. It could be just a simple typographical error. It could have been, for whatever reason, it could have been a unintentional error that they can correct and make everything better. Then we get into the whole factor of it didn't come in at the value somebody's looking for, and I think that's where we need to look at.
That's probably where most of
going
them
further.
are. Don't you think?
Yeah, most of them are. Most of the bad appraisers, frankly, have gotten out of the business because they didn't have any work in the last 3 or 4 years.
That's kind of like realtors.
It is kind of like realtors. Yep. That's not to say that everybody that got out of the business is a bad real estate agent
That's true.
or an appraiser. Some of them retired. Some of them just didn't want to deal with it anymore. But the worst appraisers and the worst real estate agents have probably gotten out of the business.
You're probably not a good one to ask, Tom, but what is a bad appraiser, or what makes a bad appraisal?
Well,
Other than just a typo or something like that?
well, clearly not using the correct data, not using the most relevant data, incorrectly measuring the house, incorrectly reporting what's in the house, incorrectly reporting condition and quality of the house, which certainly have an impact on the value. So those are fairly empirical things. Then you get into the subjective nature of what makes a good comparable versus a bad comparable, and that's where you diverge from factual versus the opinions of the appraiser.
So, lack of due diligence, I guess.
Lack of due diligence, absolutely.
Well, the second one that the most recent one I just fought, the appraiser, every single one of the comparables had a mistake on it. Like he used an address that doesn't exist.
I've seen that before.
He used the MLS numbers didn't match the addresses. One MLS number was for a house in Ann Arbor. Didn't consistently do the same adjustments. So for a walkout, he may have given a walkout value on one, but didn't give it on another one.
Right. Right, and some of that, again, the incorrect information, the incorrect addresses, the incorrect MLS information, incorrect square footage on a comparable. Those are all factual information that, again, that's bad appraising. You just didn't do your job. When you get into valuation issues, it's the appraiser's job to determine the relevance and the value, the market value and the market reaction to the subject versus a comparable. So maybe they didn't make an adjustment on the basement for a walkout, but maybe the totality of the improvement suggested that it didn't deserve one. Let me give you an example. Let's say the subject is 1,500 square feet with a walkout basement. And let's say your comparable is 2,200 square feet with a walkout basement. You may or may not make an adjustment based on the totality of, well, what's the usability of that space, what's the walkout look like, what goes into arriving at a value conclusion. So you can't just make, because it's a walkout and because it's a walkout, or because it's a walkout and because it's not a walkout, you automatically make a line item adjustment equally along the comparables. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I would probably agree with that if that were the only thing in the appraisal that I disagreed with.
But that's that is an
get that,
example
yeah.
of where it's difficult when you're looking at trying to analyze, and I can't certainly analyze an appraisal that I've never seen and why they used what they used or didn't use. But those are examples where you look at something on a report and it doesn't make a lot of sense because it's not a consistent, or you may think there should be an adjustment where somebody didn't think there was.
So what kind of improvements add value to my property?
Oh, pretty much anything you do will add some value in some way, unless you're creating a negative to the property. If you're
How could you create a negative to the property? Give me an
creating
example.
creating something that's not desirable for the area. Let's say
A pole barn in the city of Jackson?
pole barn in the city of Jackson. Good example. You may get some value for it because somebody may say, "Yeah, I'll pay $1,000 for it, or I'll pay $500 for it," but they're not going to pay $15,000 that it costs you to put that improvement
Right.
in.
How about a swimming pool?
Swimming pool, good example. In Florida, that swimming pool is going to be worth a heck of a lot more than in Jackson and in Michigan. So yes, you may get some value in a swimming pool. Actually, you can actually lose value because it's a liability in many people's eyes. So you have to look at the particular price range in the type of house that you're looking at. If you're looking at $750,000 house, a pool may be very desirable, even in Michigan, versus a $50,000 city house. So it's all relative to
I always
the
tell
particular
people to
property.
do an improvement for themselves. And although if they are putting it on the market, there are certain things that you need to do, I think, in order to get the maximum value.
Sure. If you're looking at putting something on the market, take a look at houses that are in your neighborhood that are for sale. See what they have. Do they all have new roofs? Do they all have new windows? Do they all have an upgraded bath or upgraded kitchen cabinets? Whatever those improvements are that are in the competitive world, that's what people are going to be looking for, and those are where you're going to get the most bang for your buck.
How subjective, Tom, is an appraisal?
In some areas, it's very subjective. We're looking at when you
So that
define
puts
what's
the pressure on you?
Absolutely, right. And knowing your market, knowing the area, knowing all those intricacies, absolutely make a big difference.
How many appraisers are coming in from out of town to do appraisals in Jackson County? Do you know?
I couldn't give you an exact number, but there's a lot.
Are there? In our purchase agreement, we put that the appraiser has to be a Jackson County appraiser. So whatever that is.
And does that work?
I think it has so far.
Right.
But that's when we're representing the buyer.
Okay.
So if I've got a seller, which of course these last two,
Now, I would think you're more likely to have a bad appraisal from somebody out of town.
yes,
Fair.
I would think so.
Probably the propensity is, you're more likely to. That doesn't mean that somebody coming out from another area is a bad appraiser.
Right.
Or that is unknowledgeable about the market or couldn't be adequately informed about the market to be able to do a good valuation. I'm licensed in the state of Michigan. All Michigan appraisers are licensed by the state, so I could do anything in Jackson, I could do something in Detroit or up in the UP. That doesn't mean that I'm qualified to appraise in that area or that I want to appraise in that area. But by licensing, I could do that. Then it gets into, do I know the area and can I adequately train myself and be able to come up with a competent valuation? You know, you get into appraisal management companies, which I think that's probably where Laura's going with the out-of-town appraisers. And you get a lot of out-of-town appraisers because they're willing to accept assignments from the appraisal management companies.
Well, would you go to Onaway and do an appraisal?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I've been through Onaway because my parents have a house up through
There you go.
But that
See,
doesn't
I
make
didn't know
me,
that. That was strictly a coincidence.
that does not make me qualified
But would you go to
appraise.
Adrian and do an appraisal?
I have gone to Adrian
Yeah.
a few times, sure. When you're getting into the local area, whether I particularly stay in Jackson County and kind of do a little bit out in Ingham and Washtenaw, Lenawee, and Hillsdale, but I pretty much stay to Jackson County.
That's how I am too. I mean, realtors are the same way. I mean, we had someone come down from Sheboygan and sell a $65,000 house we had listed.
Right.
And I would never go to Sheboygan and sell a house. Just, I don't know the area. I wouldn't know how to advise my clients as to the value or what's typical for the inspections and things like that.
Right, and for me, it comes down to doing a good job for your client, be it the lender or be it the buyer, seller from the real estate end. If I'm charging the same price that somebody from out of town would charge, why would I want to go to Detroit if I don't know that area when you can have a competent local person who knows that area, who's worked that area, charging the same price? Do a good job for them. Same thing with the real estate agents.
Right.
Why do you want somebody from Grand Rapids to do a Detroit appraisal when you can get somebody in Detroit that would do a great job?
Well, then my next question would be, why are so many out-of-towners coming in to do appraisals here?
Well, that gets into a lot of different issues, but one of them is the whole appraiser independence rules that have come in the last couple, 3 years, and the vast increase in what's called appraisal management companies. Essentially, without getting too complicated and too lengthy into a discussion, appraisal management companies came in as a result of appraiser independence rules from Frank Dodd and from the Home Valuation Code of Conduct that preceded it. And essentially what it said is lenders and loan officers can't have direct
Right.
relationships with the appraiser. Get some independence back into the world.
Helps to eliminate fraud.
Yeah.
Helps to eliminate fraud, right. Because the appraiser is actually supposed to be the one independent, unbiased person in a very biased transaction. You have a real estate agent and a seller on one end, you have the buyer and the real estate agent on the other end, and you have the lender who's going to make money based on closing a transaction. The appraiser is basically the one in the middle going, this is a good deal, this isn't a good deal, and here's why. So the whole appraiser independence thing came in, and so the loan officers can no longer have direct ordering of the appraisal process.
That's why they go to the management company, right?
Right. So what happened is all these lenders then said, let's create these management companies, or let's go to a third party, so we're completely out of the process. The management companies then come in, as any third party does. They want to make their money, and long story short, they end up hiring 10, 15, 20 appraisers, and they'll shoot out an email that says, hey, we have this order in Jackson, we have this order in Lansing, this is what we're willing to pay, who wants to do it? If you're sitting in Lansing and you're a big company, and you have nothing to do, you're willing to come down to Jackson and do
Okay.
that appraisal. So that's kind of where some of that comes into it.
Are you taking calls?
Yes.
Good morning.
Hi, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Okay, I wondered if you had any advice I could give my daughter. She was going to do a refinance through, I think it's Fifth Third. She had the appraiser come out, and in order for her to do the refi, she needed, I'm going to say, I'm not positive on this, but I'm going to say she needed $200,000. He appraised it like maybe $180,000. So she didn't get the refi, and now she has to pay the appraiser the $500. He didn't take into consideration the lower level. The lower level is beautiful. It even has an R factor padding underneath the plush carpeting. Plus, the downstairs is a whole apartment because it was my mother-in-law apartment, and it's huge. Plus, the other area where it's two walkout sliders. So he didn't take any of that into consideration. It's on a private drive with 15 acres. There's all the houses down there are new, and her house isn't very old. So I just wonder, should she check into that a little more and maybe look at what the appraisal breakdown was, and maybe say something about it before she pays that $500 for nothing?
Was the appraiser, was he local?
You know what? Whoever Fifth Third uses, I'm not positive.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, Tom?
Any clue?
Well, again, I can't talk specifically about that particular valuation because I don't know
Sure.
what they did or didn't do. But one of the things that the person wants to look at is they should have a copy of the appraisal, first of all. And on the second page of the main report is going to be a comparable grid. And it's going to line item about 20 different things, from the site size to the gross living area to the basement finishes, and see where they made adjustments for. Now, if it's a lower level, that's telling me immediately that it's classified as a basement. So it's not going to be, no matter the finish, it's not going to be classified in gross living area. So it would be classified as a basement, and then you get into basement finishes, and then that's where you then value based on the quality of that finish.
So the basement has value, but not as much as the first floor. And you can't include the basement square footage in the above ground square footage.
Correct. So if you have a 1,500 square foot house and a 1,500 square foot fully finished, beautifully drywalled basement, 8-foot ceilings, it's counted as 1,500 square feet and 1,500 square feet. So, and then the quality of the finish, whether it's drywall versus paneling versus painted concrete, makes a difference.
Oh yeah, it's just like the upstairs. It's completely finished out with a kitchen, new cabinet, everything's new.
Right, so when we go into valuation, that would matter, but for classification purposes, it may not be classified as gross living area.
It's not going to have the same value as the first floor, but she should look at the adjustments and then question.
Well, what does she do if they have a problem? Where does she turn?
First, turn to your lender,
Okay.
who will contact the appraiser and see whether, give them a chance to say, okay, was this really a good value? Was this not a good value? Did you look at this adjustment? Because it could have been an honest mistake. You always try to get with your lender first, and then look at with the appraiser. If it's a case of it really was a bad appraisal, and again, it's not the subjective nature of valuation, but it really was a bad appraisal, then you can turn it into the state through the licensing division, and then they will investigate it.
But that's not going to help her on her refi.
It's not going to help on the refinance.
Is it possible she could order another appraisal?
Your lender can do a quality check appraisal.
But she's out 500.
You are
It's kinda
you are out 500. I guess the other thing to think about is just because something doesn't come in at value, it could be the best possible appraisal out there. It really might only be worth $180,000. I get that your person wanted to borrow $200, but based on the data that we have and based on the parameters of the lender, that may be a very, very accurate valuation. And if they loaned the $200, then that's putting your daughter in a adverse situation if she wanted to sell it, or other issues like that.
Well, thank you. I'll pass on all the info.
Thank you. Thanks for the call.
Or you can have her listen to our show after, or come to our website at thinkingrealestate.com, because we'll have it up on our website.
There
She
you
can
go.
listen to the show.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I had some other. Oh, I know. One quick question, because
Sure.
I've got to advertise my houses. Time flies in this radio show. But anyhow, when you're going to go through a house, is it important that the house be really clean? Do you think that makes it, like if you have the exact two houses side by side and one's messy, they didn't pick up their dirty clothes and the dog dishes are all over and the kitchen sink's full of dishes, compared to the one next door that's just spotless? You think that makes a difference to the appraiser?
If it's a typical lived-in look, being that there might be a couple dishes in the sink versus there's bags of garbage in your house, That's completely different. Yeah, sure. The better it looks, the better it presents. We're all human. We do look at some of that, but I don't really care if there's a couple toys from the kids from the morning in the living room, that type of thing. But yeah, certainly garbage and the way it's maintained is an issue.
Okay. Well, thanks to Tom for coming on the show. We'll have to have him
Good
again
job.
because I don't
Anytime.
think we get most of our questions, and you have a bunch of stuff too. We've got 2 new listings, one at 1511 Francis Street. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, $24,900, and 202 Southwest Avenue at $44,900. That's a 4-bedroom, 1-bath home. That seller will look at land contracts. Also, we have price reduction at 8838 Coon Hill Road. That's a really nice, clean, manufactured home at $52,000, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. And then this weekend, Sunday, we have 2 open houses from 1 to 2:30. Great ranch at 716 South Wisner between Carlton and Wisner. 98.9. That's a bath and a half, first floor laundry, hardwood floors, fireplace. Great curb appeal, beautiful backyard. Come look at that one. And then Crestwood, 1018 Crestwood is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, beautiful family room, kitchen combination, fireplace, workshop off the back of the garage. Just spotless ranch with a full basement, $124,900. Both those open houses are 1 to 2:30 on Sunday.
ThinkingRealEstate.com. Tom, what's your phone number if somebody wants to get in touch with you?
750-3500.